Let me first of all state that I'm a progressive Democrat, so I'm in an unusual position in defending the president on any issues. But trade is one where it's important to remember that he actually has adopted what is essentially a Democratic platform on trade. I think what's happening is we're starting today as if anything that happens going forward is the first shot across the bow and the first infliction of pain. But I think manufacturing workers in the Midwest would say we've been suffering pain for 15 years, and why wasn't anybody paying attention to that until Donald Trump was on the campaign?
These costs are justified in order to achieve his end, which you think is what?
I don't know that I would say they're justified. I don't think there are a lot of great options out there. He's employing this one to see what kind of results he can achieve. And the fact that the Europeans are willing to consider waiving their tariff on cars suggests that the arguments he's making are carrying some weight.
Veronique, what's your view on this? Could the ends justify the means in this trade dispute?
Absolutely not. There are so many different ways to deal with China. The TPP was one of them. I mean, let's not forget that this multilateral agreement was meant to address part of the Chinese problem, and it was meant to do it with the strength of all of us together, all of our allies. And there's never any situation ever where it is okay for our president, an American president, to actually punish U.S. consumers, which also mean small U.S. manufacturers and farmers and workers in America, in the name of try to force China to treat their consumers better. Because let's not forget, protectionism, first and foremost, barriers to trade, first and foremost, hurt the consumers in the country where the protection is applied. So it's just never a good idea.
But Veronique, I mean, do you think the terms of trade with China did need to be reset? Would you admit that much? And if that is the result, even if it leads to 6 months, say, of higher prices, surely that's worth it in the long term?
No, it's not worth it. Why? In the name of what are you going to tell American workers who are being hurt in the downstream industries of all of these tariffs and this trade war that is being waged? I mean, we can argue whether we're full-blown in a trade war of at least these threats.
But what about the manufacturing workers that Beth brought up earlier, many of whom believe that they lost their jobs as a result of lots of complaints about overcapacity in the steel sector in China, for example?
So competition destroys job, even competition in the U.S. I mean, in the worst possible number for what is called the China shock is 2.4 million over a period of 13 years, right? Every single month in America during that same period, 1.8 million jobs were destroyed. So the China shock destroyed 30,000 jobs. Yes, competition. So, I mean, you have to weigh it and actually try to figure out also whether they were actually job gains, as trade theory and economists have known since Adam Smith. It is not.
Beth, if you read some of Veronique's stuff, she'll point out, and I think it's an accurate thing to point out, which is that when the Chinese subsidize steel, they're wasting all of their taxpayer dollars on crummy jobs, on diverting money to places it shouldn't. The Chinese consumer is ultimately, and the Chinese population is ultimately the biggest loser, and we ought to let them just be dumb about their economy if that's what they choose to do.
Right.
I don't know if I perfectly stated what Veronique's position is, but go ahead. What do you say to that?
I think we have never before been confronted with this kind of state capitalism with those kinds of deep pockets. And the idea that when laissez-faire policies that the United States tends to have confront state capitalist policies that China has, we know that the United States loses. That's exactly what happened in steel and aluminum, and that's exactly why the president put the tariffs on those products in particular. And I have to not let go unaddressed the argument that TPP was somehow going to rein in China. Anybody who knows the rules of origin of TPP, and there aren't that many of us, knows that China would have been one of the biggest beneficiaries of TPP because of the very, very weak content rules. Again, I'm a progressive Democrat, but Donald Trump was correct when he said that TPP was effectively a backdoor for China.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.